The Florida State Guard. And the Florida State Guard, when Ron DeSantis first proposed reviving the long dormant Florida State Guard, he wanted 200 volunteers and $5 million. Then it grew to 400 members, and $10 million. Now it's 1,500 members and a $100 million budget. This is more of that slippery slope that I was telling you about. And he wants it to have police power, helicopter, boats, and under one lawmaker's request, this is just one lawmaker, cell phone hacking technology.
For Florida, I would say that this is more than reasonable.
Okay.
We're talking about the state that the vast majority of immigrants come from Cuba and the other Pacific Islands. We're definitely underserved by the federal government there.
Okay.
Like
state guard that would target human trafficking and drug and child exploitation crimes, including on farms. Okay. So yeah, that's the foot in the door that I'm telling you about. It makes sense, and you're on board with them having this thing, and I'm like, okay, great, that makes sense. But then it'll become 1,500 members, and the budget will go up, and then they'll get some helicopters.
Well, the budget is always going to go up, and in terms of things we need, yeah, the budget should go up. Like, I'm not against the budget going up for purposes that are necessary.
I mean, isn't this another increase in government size and power?
No.
No.
No, it's
but when Joe Biden hires more IRS, it is.
When Joe Biden hires,
he's increasing the federal government because he's replacing retiring IRS agents. That's a huge increase in government. But 1,500 more.
Didn't he hire
people?
Well, hold on a second. Didn't he hire like 8,000 people?
It was for the whole country. So when you hire IRS agents,
that's a lot to hire.
It is an increase in government. But when you hire cops, it's not an increase in government. Size and power
well, hold on. These aren't cops.
Right. That's only specialized law enforcement. That's even scarier.
No.
Yes.
Because the whole point of the government, one of the main ones, is to enforce borders. And this bill specifically does that. So it doesn't increase the power of the government to enforce a border. The border already exists.
You're increasing the state's power. I don't know how you can't look at 1,500 new law enforcement people and $100 million and say they didn't increase the government.
Oh, they did. They increased the size of the government,
and
the power of the government already existed.
The power of the government doesn't exist until you enforce it, and these people are going to enforce it. Enforcement.
Yeah,
right there.
The power of the government existed, but we didn't have the means to enforce it, and now the government is saying, actually, hey, wait a second, we should enforce this.
So they're increasing their power.
Their power is the same. No. The capability to enforce that power increases.
Rules that are not enforced are not power. They're ideas. Enforcement is power.
Rules that are not enforced are subjectively enforced.
Right, if you have the power. You
That's
will
an increase
subjectively choose where you will put your power. I'd like you to read this blue part right here. Its scope would also be expanded, increase from only being activated during emergencies to being activated to, quotes, protect and defend the people of Florida from threats to public safety. This is an increase in government power. This is an increase in government size.
Okay, hold on. Yes, but those two things are separate.
They
So I would
could
say
be
yes.
separate. I agree that
If
they
the
could
scope
be.
is expanded, that is an increase in power.
Okay.
Now, increasing the number of people hired
Mm-hmm.
is an increase in size.
Okay. I agree. Those are two
And I'm
different
saying that
things.
size and power are two different things. If you have the power to arrest somebody, that is different from having the numbers to actually arrest somebody for that thing.
Right, but if you don't have the numbers to do the job, you have less power. An increase in size doesn't have to
You have the
increase your power,
power, but
but
you
this
don't
one
have the
does.
ability to enforce it.
Right, if you don't,
Is where we're seeing the difference here.
right, if you don't have the ability to enforce it, you don't have the power.
I think that
Increasing
if you pass a law, you should be able to enforce it. And
right,
and enforcing it means that you do have to increase the size. Yes.
and those people are going to use that size to increase their power because they are enforcing.
Okay.
So
And
this is an
now the
increase.
next question is, what are they enforcing?
I don't know yet because this is going to be the state guard. Best case scenario, they're helping the people. They're doing public safety. Best case scenario.
Does the state of Florida have the power, or does it have the right to enforce its own borders?
To enforce its own borders, it has some laws and ability. Yes.
Okay, so it has the power to do that.
Uh-huh. No, it has the. I wouldn't say it has the power. It has the mandate to that. That's okay. They have a list of things that they ought to be doing. They have the consent of the governed to enforce those borders. Yes.
Okay, it has the consent of the governed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how is it going to actually accomplish that goal? If it has the consent of the governed to enforce its borders, that, to me, the consent of the governed is the power. Then you have to be able to enforce it. Power without enforcement is not power,
Not
was
power.
what you're saying.
I agree. Yes.
Okay. Florida has the right to enforce its borders, but it doesn't have the power to unless it has the government size to enforce that power.
Right.
All right.
And
should they enforce that power?
They
Or
should.
is it a
somewhat.
good thing to increase the size of the government to enforce that power? I will say yes.
Okay. Great. That's what I've been trying to get at for a while. That Ron DeSantis is going to increase the size and the power of the government while complaining about big government, because Republicans are
Yeah, you and I just
contradictory
disagree
of
on
that. We're
what exactly
contradictory of
should
that.
be enforced by
So,
the government in the first place.
best case scenario, Ron DeSantis said 200 people, $5 million budget. Then it went to 400 members and 10 million. Now it's at 1,500 members and $100 million budget. Best case scenario, these people guard the public safety. Worst case scenario, they're the fucking brown shirts.
No.
Yes, that is the worst case scenario. Isn't that the worst case scenario?
No.
You're saying it's impossible, but I'm telling you it's worst case scenario.
First of all, $100 million and 1,400 people is like fucking nothing.
In the state of Florida, it might be something.
No, it's practically nothing. Like, if you think of our Coast Guard has like what, a $12 million budget, or 12 billion, excuse me, with a B. A $12 billion budget and like some 40,000 people for the whole country. We're talking about Florida with 1,400 and 100 million. What was the number?
Oh, where we are at the moment, it's at 1,500 people and $100 million.
1,500 people and $100 million. And Florida is like the main destination for people trying to come here illegally. Aside from, of course, across the Mexican border.
Mm-hmm. And
our budget in Florida is not enough federally, and Florida is now trying to take care of that problem themselves with their own budget and their own manpower.
okay, best case scenario, they do that. It's slippery sloping, just
That's
like
the
I've
whole goal
said
of that.
3 or 4 times to about Ron DeSantis today, is that he slippery slopes. He gets his foot in the door with something. He gets his foot in the door with something reasonable. 200 volunteers, $5 million budget is
Okay, that wasn't
piss
enough.
water. Right. So he got his foot in the door. People said, yes, great. Use that to protect our borders. Then he increases it. He expands to 410 million. Then he expands again to 1,500 members and a $100 million budget. And they're going to start protecting the public at his rallies, or protecting the public, the public's free speech stuff, or they're going to start going to school PTA meetings. They'll just send one guy to the PTA meeting so that things don't get out of hand. You wouldn't want terrorists at the PTA meeting. I agree. And
I'm actually not even sure how you got to this point.
And now they're the brown shirts. That's how I'm getting to that point.
See,
that is worst case scenario. Kyle says, what's worse than that? It is the worst case scenario. You're saying it's completely unimaginable, but I'm imagining it.
I'm saying that we don't even have the resources to defend our own borders. And Florida is saying, okay, if the federal government's not going to do it, we'll do it ourselves because we are a state.
Okay.
Right? And, you know, outside of the United States, the word state actually has meaning.
I think that Florida's a state.
It is.
Okay.
Except for the word state outside of the United States actually means country.
Okay.
So, does Florida have the right as a state to defend its borders? That's a specialized. Yeah, you're hiring specialized, or you're highlighting specialized.
I know.
What about specialized? I mean,
I don't know yet. I'm trying to find.
In terms of the federal government, is the Coast Guard a specialized law enforcement agency?
Sure, it is. Of course, it is.
Then
the
Marines gives a fuck whether it's specialized or not?
I know. What I'm saying is, the worst
Why
case.
Why are you keep hiring specialized then?
Well, because I'm looking for coincidences between these people and these people.
Yeah, I know you are, because
I would
people
hate
are obsessed with that.
For these people to become these people.
Which they won't.
I hope they don't.
But
they might.
Florida is literally the #1 destination outside of the Mexican border for illegal immigration.
Right.
So we don't have enough people that are actually preventing the migration from happening. And if people do want to come here, they should do it through the legal ports of entry, which is codified into law. And if they aren't, we should be enforcing, hey, you can't come here unless you go through the port of entry. Right?
Okay. Right.
And Florida is saying the federal government is not doing enough. We're going to do it ourselves.
Okay. And hopefully they don't harm people in doing so. Few, if any, state guards appear to have the power that Florida is considering. So they're increasing their power.
The state should have more power than the federal government.
I can't even imagine how that would be that would happen.
Well, let's put it another way. Should England or France have more power over their own countries, England or France, than the European Union has?
They should have authority within their borders, but they
Uh-huh.
don't get to dictate if they're part of a larger uh, federation. If they're part of a larger federation and that larger federation says, okay, this is a human right now, this is what we suggest for this part, they can either disagree with it and try and push back, or get new people elected into those positions. If Florida doesn't think that the federal government is doing well enough, then Florida can elect better people. Florida can sue the federal government, which they do all the time, to say that this is the way we need it in Florida, and the judges can make those decisions. That's acceptable. I'm not saying that hiring these guards is illegal. I'm not saying that it's unacceptable for them to have a budget and 1,500 members. I'm saying that Ron DeSantis, slippery sloping again from a small thing that's acceptable to a medium thing that's a little bit of acceptable to a larger thing that's less acceptable, is snowballing and slippery sloping again and again and again. And I think that he is controlling so much that he's making me nervous.
If
Okay?
Florida decided that it needed 10,000 people
Mm-hmm.
and a $1 billion budget
Okay.
for its Florida Coast Guard.
Great. And they pass that and they spend that money, I accept it. But I'm going to watch them. And if they start doing bad things, I'm going to point it out. This is me looking at a thing saying, hey, this might go wrong. This is me looking at somebody driving really fast and saying they might crash. I'm not causing them to crash. I'm not saying they are going to crash. I'm saying he's speeding towards a result, and I'm worried that this is the result.
I think that you are overly worried.
What
I
we've
think
got.
that what you're looking at right now
Mm-hmm.
is way, way beyond. Even if we were to expand the Florida Coast Guard to 10,000 and $1 billion budget,
Mm-hmm.
that's still way out of the fucking Sturmetter, whatever the
Brown
fuck
shirts.
that's called.
Brown shirts.
Sturmettling.
I mean, storm detachment. These are the brown shirts. This is what I'm worried about. This is the you have every right to say that I am over exaggerating.
You are.
Okay, great. I hope that I am also wrong. But the only
I'm
way
saying
is
that
to
the
like
government
look at them and
is
point at them.
expanding in size, yes, but it's expanding in size to enforce powers that it already has.
To enforce the laws that it has. Okay. I hope they do a good job with it. I
So,
don't want
so
them to in an increase in human rights and people enforcing human rights is an acceptable increase in state power, but an increase in uh, policing polling places and uh, going to the PTA meetings wouldn't be an acceptable use of an increase in state power. And I don't trust Ron DeSantis. Every single time I see a thing with his name on it, it's him increasing his power. It's him increasing uh, the power of his state. It is him increasing the threat that he has against actual democracy.
We've already agreed that they have the power to enforce their borders, right? Or at least
Yes, they do.
at very least, they have the right to enforce their
They have
borders.
the right to, and they have the ability to
Okay,
spend their
if they have
money
the
the
right
way
to
they
do
want.
that, they have to have the manpower to do that, right?
Yes, they do.
And so hiring these people makes that possible,
Best case scenario, yes, it
in
does.
theory.
Yes, it does. Best case scenario, they help the people of Florida. Best case scenario, they protect and
What
defend the people of
what do you
Florida
think
from
would have to
threats
be
to public safety.
passed? Do you do you think that there would have to be a new bill passed in order to get the brown shirts in action?
No, they just do it. They would hire a bunch of soldiers, let's say 1,500 of them for $100 million, and then give them police power, helicopter boats, and cell phone hacking technology. And then they would
Now we're
answer
hiring
to
them
the government,
specifically to
the
do a
governor,
job, and
and
that
then they would
job is to
do what
defend
DeSantis
the
tells them.
borders of Florida.
Well,
It's to enforce the existing laws, right?
right, and DeSantis makes those
Okay.
laws.
And
He wants
so
you
what
to
you're saying
break
is
up
that to
drag
get the
shows.
brown shirts, we have to have a separate law that's passed.
No,
right?
not really. You just have to have budget.
Yes.
No, you can
You
have
would have
brown
to have a
shirts without a
separate
law.
law passed in order to get the brown shirts to. And Kyle says they just changed their responsibility. Yes, to change their responsibility, you know what has to happen? You have to pass a law that changes their responsibility.
No, the governor just says go do it. The governor says go break up that drag show. The governor says that drag show is a
that would be an
protect
unlawful
and defend.
Order.
Great. They are on board with him. They love him. They think he's great.
Not all of them do.
He says, well, he's going to hire the 100 people who agree
DeSantis
with
only
him.
wins the governorship by like 2% in Florida. It's 52 versus 48.
Right.
There's no way that every single person that joins this force,
1,500 people, he can find.
There's no way that they're not vetting 1,500 people for their political views. Stop. Those people are just as diverse as any other corporation or company in the country. Those 1,500 people that join that are doing it because they need a job and they're going to be trained to do the job.
Going to be cops.
What?
You're telling me they're not going to vet people for their political view, but they are going to vet them to be cops. Cops tend to lean one direction, don't they?
Would we expect then to find a political bias to the point where if we pass a law saying you should round up all the Jews, then we're going to do that?
They don't start that way. They start with the small stuff. Keep these certain. Break up the drag shows is step number one.
This is ridiculous.
No, it's not. Break up the drag shows is step number one, and we're already doing it. Take away the liquor license. Have the government take away the liquor license of a place that did a drag show. Great. And that's baby step number one. Baby step number two is to have one of these 1,500 members go bust up a drag show to protect and defend the people of Florida from threats to public safety. I accept that I am on a slippery slope right now, telling you this is a slippery slope. And you can say, hey, Waldo, you're being ridiculous.
I think there's a spectrum
slippery slope
that is acceptable. So, on the one hand, just like with the Don't Say Gay bill, I have a spectrum where I say, all right, after middle school, fine, talk about sexuality and whatnot to high schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy into teaching elementary schoolers about sexuality and whatnot. They don't need to know that.
Mm-hmm.
There is a line that I draw where I say, okay, this is where it's acceptable, this is where it's not.
Mm-hmm. And they've baby stepped past that line. They baby stepped, then they baby stepped, and you were still on board, and then they baby stepped and you were still on board, and then they baby stepped past you.
I still think that there's a point where I can say, this is the point where I'm not on board.
Yeah, and you
have. If that's the point, then it shouldn't be either all or nothing. That's ridiculous. The idea that banning it in 3rd grade, banning it in 8th grade, and then we baby step it to 12th grade, well, I'm allowed to say I agree with 3rd and 8th. I don't agree with 12th. Okay?
Great. I agree with you.
Well, there you go. Why are we doing this whole
You can say that.
This weird I can disagree with having 1 million members of the Florida Coast Guard with a $10 billion budget. That's bigger than the federal one.
Florida State. Florida State Guard of 1 million members is too many. But 1,500 is
probably. Yeah, I'd say 1,500 is probably fine.
Okay.
I would say.
And I'm looking literally at the baby steps. 200. Then they say 4. Now they say 15. Next month they'll say 2,000. Then they'll say 3. They're baby stepping. And if we're lucky, if everything goes well, and if DeSantis is not the person I think he is, then they will actually protect and defend the people of Florida from threats to public safety. And I will be wrong. That's an acceptable future for the world. That is the future I want for the world. I want DeSantis to be a rational, normal human being who protects and defends the people of Florida from threats to public safety. And if he isn't,
I'll
if
halfway
it goes
agree.
the other way, I agree.
And
Great.
yes, you
if
do have to have
these are the
a certain
shirts.
amount of. Oh, they're not.
They're going to be.
In
they
order
will become
to
so.
do the protection and defense of the people of Florida, you have to have people that do that.
Great, I agree. You
have to have enough people to do it.
Okay. The evidence and the things that he talks about are trans people and drag shows. Those are the threats that he sees to public safety. And I think he's going to.
I think that the state guard is an entirely different subject.
Okay, well, I'm going to watch them. I'm telling you specifically that I'm going to watch them. And if they start breaking up drag shows and stuff like that, it would be no different than them breaking up Jews during World War II. You don't see the parallels here. Do you not see parallels?
No,
okay,
I don't.
Then I'm just imagining them. That's fine. If I'm drawing parallels where there are none, I can be wrong. That's acceptable. But I'm worried that
I think Florida is identifying a deficiency in our own ability to, as a country, enforce our borders. And Florida is saying if our country can't enforce them, we're going to do it ourselves. And we have to have people that can do that.
Okay. I hope that everything goes well. I want the state guard to do good things. But when I see a person that I do not trust increasing the size of government, and not increasing it in a way that I think is going to help, but a way that I think is going to harm, I'm going to tell you that. I think this is Ron DeSantis increasing the size of the government in a dangerous way.
I don't see the danger because I don't see the laws that would increase the danger. You can have I'll put it this way, you can have as large of a government as you like in terms of size, number of employees, etc. Those employees do have to act within the law. So the law is the power, and the size is the ability to enforce that power. That's where we disconnect, I think. You have to have the people to enforce laws. It's the passage of laws on people that are not employees of the government that are restrictions on freedom. Whereas if you pass laws that restrict government employees and you don't hire enough people to enforce the laws, both of those things are reductions on the ability to enforce government power.
Okay. Okay. I think we've.
I don't know if that makes sense or not.
I mean, I might when I re-edit it, I'll read through it. I would. May I point out one more thing?
Sure.
Obama got elected, and all the conservative people I know were screaming about jackbooted thugs coming to steal their guns. And it never happened. And that's good. If I'm wrong, and these aren't the jackbooted thugs who are going to harm trans people, then I will be wrong and I will be happy. If, hypothetically, let's imagine there is somebody who is an actual fascist and he wants to harm minorities, what would he do? He's been elected. He would get a budget and he would get members.
You know, if I was an actual fascist and I was elected and I wanted to harm minorities, the first thing I would do is take away guns.
Okay. And who's going to do that?
Probably the liberals.
A force that you would then hire. You would have to have money to hire people to go and take those guns. And you would give them special law enforcement powers.
I know that people championing the Second Amendment wouldn't be the ones that are looking to take away guns.
It's cops that are going to take away the guns, not the federal government. If anybody's going to
The
take your guns,
federal government has
it's
to
the
pass a
cops.
law before the cops go to take guns away.
Madness. The cops
Not madness at
work
all.
off of the state. If the state, if Ron DeSantis hires these 1,500 people and they go and take guns from trans people, are you on board with it?
No.
Okay.
They wouldn't in the first place.
Republicans
And
gonna
you know
be
what?
on board with it?
If someone showed up to randomly just take guns away from a trans person, that trans person should shoot everybody that shows up at the door.
Great. And what does Fox News say about it? What does Florida man who lives in Florida and supports Ron DeSantis say about it? They're on board. I'm telling you, this is a baby
not
step.
at all.
It's baby stepping. I know that I've taken a huge
because
leap.
the minute you show up to take away someone's Second Amendment right, I'll tell you what, everybody in favor of the Second Amendment will put aside every other difference. It doesn't matter what it is, they will put aside every other difference because the Second Amendment is the most important one.
Unless they're a groomer. I'm telling you, that's why that word has come out. That's why the Republicans in the Fox News have been calling them that.
No. Even Fox News will never do that because
you can do anything
they
you
support.
Want to rapists and groomers.
Because the
okay.
second that you turn on the Second Amendment is the second you lose it, and they will never do it.
So.
Nope. There is literally not a single amendment more important than the second. And there is no Republican or conservative
it's a trans
that
teacher.
will ever even it doesn't matter. Trans teacher owns a gun, somebody attacks them, trans teacher shoots somebody. Well, guess what? The Second Amendment is paramount. It'll be about self-defense.
Okay.
I'm telling you, in every case, it doesn't matter.
I think that's why.
That's the most important thing.
I hope. Well, they don't have guns anyway. So what's going to happen is that they're going to lose their First Amendment. They're going to lose their First Amendments to peacefully gather. They're going to lose their First Amendment rights to have drag shows. They're going to lose their First Amendment to protest. And they're going to lose their, some of them have already lost their liquor license and things like that. And these guys are going to take, I'm worried. I know I'm at the bottom of this slippery slope, but I am worried.
You know why? You know why these people lose their rights?
Because
they don't have guns.
Okay.
They should. And they should fight back against the loss of their rights. If they feel like they're losing rights, they should.
That's the only option we have? Is to shoot the people that come to take our guns. That's it. That's the only thing that works in the world. Or we can tell people about it. Or we can see this coming. Or we can make a YouTube video about how maybe those 1,500 members are going to take away the rights of the minority.
They're not. They're there to protect the borders.
I hope that is what they do. But I am going to watch it because I am worried that this threat right here, this word threat, will be construed into whatever they want it to be.
Well, if those people show up to break up a perfectly lawful gathering,
okay,
or to take rights away from people, then hopefully the people that they're trying to take rights away have guns.
Okay, but if they don't, are the Republicans in Florida on board for it? I think they will be, if they're baby stepped to it properly. If they're baby stepped to it slowly enough, those troops will go and they'll break up this First Amendment accept level thing, and they'll call the people they are groomers. And the people will accept it.
You know what? I'll tell you what. What if all the Jews that got rounded up in 1940 had guns?
They were called degenerate.
No. They didn't have guns. They were called degenerate. That's fine. What if they were called degenerate and they had guns? And then they were rounded up. And guess what happens to all the Nazi soldiers that surrounded them? The Nazi soldiers get fucking shot.
At. Great.
They all die.
And then the army comes in and kills them all.
Except for the fact that in the case of the United States and in Florida, there are, 50 guns to every member of some service that comes to round them up?
Okay.
The government... See, that's the thing about the Second Amendment, is that it makes sure that you are not scared of your government. The government is scared of you. And that's the point.
Okay. And if the government was afraid of you, and they still wanted to get the job done, they would hire members.
And I'm telling you, those 1,500 members are jack shit compared to the number of guns in Florida. And also, they're not there to round up people in Florida. They're there to defend the border.
I hope so. And we'll end it there. They're protecting the border. I hope. They're protecting and defending the people of Florida from threats to public safety. I hope that's true. And maybe it will be. And if it turns out that they are, then I will tell you that they are.
Fair enough.
Oh, hi. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button. Press the subscribe button. If you want to tell me how right I am, feel free to leave a comment. If you want to tell me how wrong I am, leave a comment too. That's good. This is just kind of a hobby for me, so I appreciate you coming by, giving it a watch, and pressing the YouTube buttons. Thanks.